Hello, I am Virginia Glenn. One of my favorite stories in Doc Schilling's Tales of Yellow Creek was about Standing Rock, named Stigwanish by the Indians. This huge boulder sits in Yellow Creek, located about 2 miles east of the Moortown Civil War Monument. Standing Rock Farm has been owned by the Christian family for over 100 years and has always been a focal point of the Yellow Creek Valley. The story, in Indian lore, goes that the Great Father was displeased, made the earth rumble, and sent the large boulder to the ground. We are sure that this mammoth boulder, because of its location among many other spots in the valley, was an important meeting place for the Indians. The Ohio lands in our area were mostly used, in the recent past, as hunting grounds. We know the permanent Indian settlements in the far past were here because they left several mounds in the area. These mounds were documented in Doc Schilling's books and are the only source of any permanent settlements or villages that could be found. Where Doc Schilling got the inspiration for writing the legend of Standing Rock, no one is sure. There are many variations of this story written over the years because there was always contention among the natives over hunting grounds in North America. Doc's story tells of an impending battle between the Algonquin and Cherokee tribes over hunting grounds in the Yellow Creek Valley. The medicine men and chiefs agreed to meet at Stigwanish and come up with an agreement to prevent further bloodshed. They agreed to have a battle that would finally determine who had the hunting rights to the valley. Each tribe agreed to choose a representative tree and bring only the number of warriors representing the number of leaves on their chosen tree. The Algonquins chose the hickory for their tree and brought only the number of leaves that could be counted on that tree. Several hundred warriors met at the rock, ready for the impending battle. The Cherokee, from their native southlands, chose the green hemlock and filled the valley in such huge numbers as in locust groves or passenger pigeons. The Cherokee carried in their war bags a bald eagle with its legs and wings bound by rawhide. The Algonquins puzzled over this. Were they to be sacrificed to the Great Spirit? A Cherokee prophet mounted Standing Rock and ordered all to be quiet and listen. He told his great warriors to loosen the ties on the bald eagle, pour a gourd of hemlock seed from their chosen tree on its back, and let it fly over the valley so this mighty tree may stand over the hills forever. This explains why this beautiful valley is so clothed in hemlock trees. The prophet then implored the Great Spirit to blight the nut-bearing hickory tree that the Algonquins had chosen, so it would only produce wormy seeds. An Algonquin prophet rose to the rock to speak and implored the warriors to have a feast before the battle. He suggested that the Cherokee go to the hills and hunt many deer and turkeys, while the Algonquins would do the cooking. While the Cherokee rested from their hunt, the Algonquins cooked the meat, adding many savory herbs. They suggested the Cherokee eat first, as was the custom before a battle. The Cherokee glutted themselves and then lay down to sleep. The Algonquin medicine man walked among them, shaking his rattle, and determined them to be in a sleep never to wake. The meat had been poisoned by the dusky cooks. The medicine man then implored the Great Spirit to protect all the nut trees in the valley from blight for as long as the Great Standing Rock stood sentinel over the Yellow Creek Valley. He then told his Algonquin warriors, bearing the hickory leaves, to throw the Cherokee into the creek so that they may float to the homeland of the great hemlock, never to return again. Let's hear the story of the legend of Standing Rock as read in the reprint of R. W. Schilling's book, Yellow Creek Stories.
The legend of Standing Rock. Countless ages ago, in truth so far in the dawn of time past, that the years would almost equal the number of grains of sand on the seashore, the great spirit of the universe, for some unknown reason, grew very angry in his wrath. He caused a terrible earthquake to shake the rock-ribbed hills and deep valleys of the Yellow Creek country, as if they were giant living monsters in the tremors of death. In those days, a mammoth boulder, standing proudly and majestically atop the highest hill on the south side of Yellow Creek, became exceedingly alarmed and said to the small rocks near it, "It must be I who have caused the Great Spirit so much anger. For see how I sway to and fro. If he does not cease soon, I am going to jump to the sky and find the cause of his displeasure, if I can." With one mighty effort, the giant, upright boulder started to sway and roll, but only landed in the center of the creek at the foot of the precipitous hill. Then the earth ceased to shake, and these craggy hills have been tranquil and in peace for all the many ages that have followed this terrible geological chill. Then the Red Hunter came and lingered long in these delightful hills and valleys, and in their strange language named the sparkling stream of water Yellow Creek. The monster boulders still standing proud and erect in the creek channel, they christened Stigwanish or Standing Rock. This ancient sentinel and guidepost had been, as long as these red children of the forest could recall, the central meeting place where the hunting tribes could assemble at the end of each autumnal hunting season, and all travel happily homeward through the endless wilderness to their wigwams where the sun sets in the west. But as time went on, instead of traveling home as a happy group, jealousy silently crept in to cause dissension among them, and many refused to listen to the wise counsel or patient mediation. Tradition relates that these dusky hunters of the red deer and wild turkey turn on each other with war clubs, tomahawks, and many arrows. They turned with such deadly effect that their chieftain saw that if this egregious blunder was not soon corrected, all the tribes that came to these hunting grounds from the north and south of the Ohio River would soon be exterminated from the face of the earth. It was proposed and agreed upon that the greatest chief of the northern Algonquin tribe and the most powerful chief of the southern Cherokee warriors would meet at the Standing Rock. Here they would decide, for once and all time, the ownership of all the hunting land on both sides of the great Ohio River, for a distance that their best runner could travel between sunrise and sunset. The longest day of summer, when the sun was overhead, was the time set aside for these two chieftains to meet. They arrived promptly on time, for much was at stake. After much pow-wowing and smoking of many pipes, it was finally determined they would be unable to decide the perplexing question amicably, but only a test of skill, strength, and bravery by fighting until one tribe or the other was exterminated. It was also agreed that each tribe was to choose a favorite tree and bring as many warriors to the final fight, as the tree chosen had leaves on its branches. Each warrior was to bring his own choice of weapons, but was not allowed to bring any witnesses to the deadly combat who did not represent a leaf of the tribe's chosen tree. The longest day of the year arrived, and when the sun was overhead, the Algonquins were present and had picked as their chosen tree the hickory. They had carefully chosen warriors for each leaf, ready and waiting at the Standing Rock, a well-organized group of several hundred husky warriors eager for the fray. The next day came the Cherokees, whose number filled the valley like a huge flock of passenger pigeons, or droves of locusts, for they had chosen as their tree the green hemlock of the Southland, and had been several moons counting the tiny leaves and carefully picking an equal number of red warriors of proven strength and endurance to fight this battle to the finish. Each of the Cherokee warriors carried in his deerskin knapsack a bald eagle, with legs and wings bound securely with deer hide thongs. Whether they brought these noble birds as an offering to the Great Spirit was a question the Algonquins could not solve until the morning of the following day. A Cherokee, Propet, edged his way to and mounted the Standing Rock. Then, ordering all to be silent and listen, he spoke. "Great Spirit, we are thankful for outwitting and outnumbering the Algonquins. We cannot fail to overcome the enemy. Now, to my brave warriors bearing the hemlock leaf, unloosen the eagle from its thongs. After pouring the gourd of hemlock seed on its back, let them fly to the hilltops so that this noble tree may grow here in this Yellow Creek Valley and hills forever, as a thank offering for our mighty victory. May the time soon come when the Algonquins' nut-bearing trees all blight and bear only wormy seed. Great Spirit, I have finished." To all the assembled dusky warriors, it looked as if the Algonquins would be completely wiped out of existence, and the chiefs of the latter tribe were anxiously darting hither and thither. Finally, an Algonquin prophet who had been in active conversation with his chief medicine man in his wigwam edged through the crowd. He wore a bonnet of many eagle feathers, and around his neck a necklace of dried bear paws, and over his broad shoulders he wore a long trailing deerskin robe. He was seen moving towards the Standing Rock, chanting ever louder and louder for all the assembled tribes to listen to the words that the Great Spirit would put on his tongue. "My red brothers, listen. Before battling to the death, I adjure you to go into the hills and kill many fat deers and eat much, so that your strength and bravery will be as strong and tough as the heartwood of the Nobel tree you have chosen to represent. Your tribe, again I say, listen to the words placed on my tongue by the Great Spirit. As each tribe had eaten very little for several days, it was quickly and freely agreed to abide by the Great Spirit's words. The Algonquins suggested that as the Cherokees were the greatest in number, that they go to the hilltops and drive the deer into the valley, while they would gather the wood for the fire to roast the venison, and furnish an abundance of pleasing herbs to make the meat more savory and delectable. This consumed almost 2 more days, and the Cherokees were nearly famished, so that they lay resting and sleeping while the Algonquins were busy as beavers roasting the venison, cutting it into large pieces with plentiful herbal dressing. All was ready for the feast, and the Cherokees demanded that they be allowed to gorge themselves first. This was freely agreed to by the Algonquins, they being thankful to be allowed to show this courtesy. They strongly urged the Cherokees to eat until their stomachs were round as pumpkins and their hunger fully appeased. The Cherokees, having feasted to the point of gluttony, again lay down to rest and sleep until the Algonquins had satisfied their hunger. But the bearers of the hickory leaf watched them with anxious eyes and heavy hearts. The Cherokees soon began to snore loudly, and it was noticed shortly after beginning to snore that none seemed to move or breathe. And all were silent, for all had been poisoned to death by the toxic herbs the dusky cooks had placed inside the roasting deers on the recommendation of their medicine man. Again, the now proud and haughty Algonquin prophet walked among the dead Cherokees, whose bodies covered the valley as far as the eye could see. He shook his magical deer hoof rattle close to their heads, and finally pronounced all these Cherokees deaf to his magical sounds. And now, after long gazing into the sun on the western hilltops for a new inspiration from the Great Spirit, at last he shouted in a triumphant voice, "Listen, brave warriors bearing the hickory leaves, throw the bodies of these cowardly Cherokees into Yellow Creek at the foot of the Standing Rock. They died because they were scared to death, too cowardly to fight. Listen, may these cowardly dead float back to the land of the hemlock trees in the Southland to never return again. Listen again, my brave warriors, for the Great Spirit says that henceforth none of his red children of the forest should ever live on either side of the mighty Ohio, except at the risk of his life. As long as Standing Rock remains, let this request be kept for all time. If the nut trees in the Yellow Creek Valley ever sicken and disappear, may it be as many summers in the future as the number of stars in the heavens on a moonless winter night. Then the Cherokees will have been forgotten, and Standing Rock no longer remembered as the happy meeting place where once we met as happy friends." It is useless to add that all these things came to pass as the inspired prophet had told his red warriors. Instead of a land of amity and peace, it became the dark and bloody hunting ground. Hemlock clothe our rocky hillsides, and our nut trees, like the wood duck and passenger pigeon, have sickened and disappeared, lost forever. Only the sphinx-like, gray old Standing Rock remains as mute witness to this ancient tragedy when reason was not applied, and force ruled and both sides lost.
The depiction of Standing Rock featured here is by local artist Dave Barnhouse, whose studio is in Richmond, Ohio. Dave and his wife, Marie, have given us permission to use this painting on our website and in our soon-to-be-published Follow the Yellow Creek Road. The story of how we became acquainted with the Barnhouse family and Dave's paintings is, in part, due to Doc Schilling's books in Standing Rock. Dave called us on New Year's Day, right after a reprint of Doc's books Tales and Stories of Yellow Creek came out for Christmas in 2009. Our family was here for New Year's, and the kids were cooking and, as usual, being very noisy, so I went back to the office to talk to him. He introduced himself and explained to me that he had painted Standing Rock, with some Indians having a meeting around the rock. He said he had an idea for the painting from Tales of Yellow Creek. He asked if we could trade one of our new books for a giclée print of his Standing Rock painting. A giclée is a reprint of a painting on canvas instead of paper. Of course, my kids said someone was playing a joke on me, so I did not follow up with Dave. When I later delivered books to Fort Steuben in Steubenville, Ohio, Judy Bratton told me I should contact Dave, so she called him, and he asked me to stop by on the way home. We traded the giclée for the book and began a good working relationship with Dave and Marie. We took the Standing Rock giclée with us when we promoted the book and told the story of Standing Rock. We not only sold books, but we also sold several giclées of Standing Rock. This began a friendship with Dave and Marie, and I learned a lot from Dave about promoting events and our books. When Dave is working on an idea for a new painting, sometimes he will call and ask our family to hitch up the big workhorses or a wagon full of the kids being pulled by one of our tractors. We firmly believe that Dave has done more to preserve our local history in his many paintings than anyone we can think of. I don't think there is a farm, city, little village, or historical spot that he has not painted. Standing Rock is one of the many paintings he has done that will always immortalize our local history. Dave's original painting of Standing Rock is owned by Herman and Catherine Howell from Pine Grove Ridge in northern Jefferson County.